DMX.
So, to take down some of the myths of how hard it really is to program, I've got to get this right because I've never met Chris before. Chris has joined us. His company is CDC. He will tell you all about it. He's got some very elaborate desks. I know that's a desk.
Yeah, so I'm alright with that good stuff.
And he's got some great stuff that you can run off your laptops. So I'm going to let him talk about it. As we said, 15-20 minutes, answer some questions, and then you can come and talk to him. He will do a couple of talks if we get time. Chris, over to you. Thank you.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
So I basically specialise in lighting in my company. We hire lighting and things like that. I started off at your level where you are now, or I don't know, anyone here has used DMX. Well, I started off using little DJ controllers and things like that. That's how I learned. So we're going to start off with the basics of how it works. So DMX basically sends a signal, across with a series of channels. So that's why you hear things like 512 channels. That's what it sends down the cables basically. Each channel or each number of that 1 to 512 can control a different attribute within a light. So from 0 to 100%. So certain lights take up different amounts of channels. So first of all, we've got something really simple, which is just a par can here, which is just going to set on a 4-channel mode. So it's just on a 4-channel mode. So basically, on here you can see we've just got 8 channels. So 4 channels. So your first channel is your amount of red, second channel amount of green, third channel blue, last channel UV. So that's basically how your channels work. This desk, this really basic desk, automatically patches itself because there's 16 channels, so you've got 2 pages of 8. Automatically patches it, starts off at 1 and then all the way up to 16. So your first fader is going to be DMX value 1. So when you set your light to DMX number 1 on the back of your light, that is going to start off there with red, which is your first channel. Different lights, like I say, take up different amounts of channels depending on what the lights do. So something like this takes up 14 channels because you've got things like pan, tilt. On these you've got zoom, so you can zoom in and out, strobe, all that kind of thing. So that's the basics of how it works. Is it uses those channels to control 0 to 100% on those channels from 1 to 512. But like each light takes up 4 channels, 13 channels, 32 channels, depending on how big you go. Up from there. We then go up to other types of software. Other types of controller is software, which you can see on this screen here, which this is just a copy of what I've got on the screen here, just so you know. This sort of visualises your 512 channels a bit easier. So if you see here, you start off at 1 at this corner, down to 512 down here. And this is my light that I've patched into here, which is this one. So you can see where it's taken up 14 channels on there, basically. So with software, what it does is the software knows what the different attributes within that light are. So it has what we call profiles. So on this is my DMX from NADJ. So you've got all your manufacturers down here of all the different lights. You can go in and say we've got American DJ. Choose that there. Find the light. So this is the Eno Z19. This one here. So you find it there. That's it there. So when you then drag that across, it will show you on there how many channels that takes up. So it's already got that profile in there. So that software knows that channel 1 is going to be your pan, channel 2 is going to be your tilt, and so on up through red, green, blue, strobe, zoom, and so on and so on. So that's how you can control different fixtures by putting them on different channels. So if I wanted to control this fixture and I had 2 of these next to each other and I wanted to control them separately, I'd put the first one on number 1 on the screen here, and then the next one, my next available channel, because that takes up 14, will be 15. So my second one I'd set to 15, and then if you have more and more you can go up from there. It doesn't have to be the same light though, so I can go in and say find something else, say something, I don't know, something from fine art or something like that, different spots. So you've got other lights here, so you can drag those in. See, that takes up a lot more channels. So You can then hover that over, set your start address on there, which is what your start address is going to be on each light. So you can see on here, that one is set at number 1 when you go into the DMX address, and because number 1 is your start address there. Where it can mess things up, so say this is set to DMX address 1, so if I wanted my second one of these, I'd have to set it to 15. If I set it to somewhere within that chain of that first 14, obviously when I change the different values within that light, it's going to overlap, so it's going to get confused because I'm controlling the pan and tilt on this, but the other one might be overlapping onto the red and green, so it's going to then, those values are going to overlap and it's going to confuse, it will put those values depending on what they are. So that's where you just need to make sure you haven't got any overlapping channels. To find out what each channel does, you get a manual with a light, which will show you in there DMX layout. So it then shows you what each channel does on those particular lights. Yeah. With these particular software, so this is my DMX Buddy, which you might have seen. It's just basically plugs into your computer, and it's this little tube here. They do 2 different versions of this. So this one only allows you to control 192 channels. So where it says on there it's 512, you can't control all the way up there. You can only do between 1 and 192. So then that reduces the amount of lights that you basically anyway. That's why it's cheaper. You can't put as many lights on it. Yeah. Yeah, that's the same software. So this is the latest version they brought out. So this is their 3.0, I think they brought out now. Same premise. They've just added a few features. You can now do a visualizer software, which basically allows you to visualize. You can make your layout on the screen without having the lights actually there. You can then play things, set up things in your visualizer, and it will show you on the screen what they're going to theoretically do. And you can save that without actually setting up the lights, which is quite a handy feature for some people. On that, that comes with that software as well. On that, with these softwares, the only annoying thing with some of these, obviously it shows you all the manufacturers in here, which is quite a big library of manufacturers. But obviously you can't have everything. So for example, these are Illuminate. These is the make of these, which are made by ProLight, which is quite a rare thing that American DJs don't really recognise. So with this particular light, it doesn't have the profile built into the system. So what that software does come with is another bit of software called Scan Library, which basically allows you those profiles that you drag across, you can make them yourself. So if I had the manual in front of me, I can see that channel 1 and 2 on this light are pan and tilt. So grab pan and tilt across here, drag it across, it then puts 1 and 2 there as pan and tilt. I then know that the next one is going to be, say for example, the dimmer, then 3 is the dimmer, and so on and so on. You save that file, then you can transfer it across to the software, and it then recognises each individual thing. You don't have to have those profiles. For example, so when I go into the editor mode, along the bottom here, it's all grained here. So if I had, for example, this light, I start it at I start that at 20. So now if I go across to 20 on there, as it says, I go across to 20 on there. Now that is controlling that, you can see there's no profile in there, so I can't physically see what each of those things does. So the profile allows you to actually see on there, that says pan and tilt, it says your colours there, so you can easily see, because if you didn't have any of that, you'd be really confused and looking at that and not being able to see what each individual thing is. Yeah, so that's the basic on DMX for a cheap little controller, and for the software. Software is obviously a bit easier. With these cheap little controllers, you can't program scenes, which is something that people like to do. So I can put that as red, but I can't save that as a scene to then record it later on easily. It's just what's there and now. You can get things like Chauvet do the Obey series, I don't think anyone's used those. That allows you to program scenes in, so you record all those values. So I want that colour. You then click store and store it into a scene, and it will then record those exact values for each one of those channels from 1 to 512 when you recall it. Yeah, that's the basics of DMX really. I found it incredibly confusing when I first started, but now I find it really easy. You just have to get your head round each one of those channels is a different attribute within the light, and it records a snapshot of what those values are of each channel. So from 0 to 100% on the first channel. So when you're doing pan and tilt, 0 is here and 100% is there, and it records a value in between that for each individual channel. Same with red, green and blue, the amount of red, the amount of green and blue, and so on and so on. Another thing to mention with these, so saying from 0 to 100% is great if it's a linear scale. So with red it's 0 red or it's 100% of red, and then in between it fades. With things like shutter, if I put this back to 0 1, like that. Things like shutter, you'll see in the manual it shows you from 0 to 100%, and then within each value they go in sections. So say 0 to 5% might be off, 5% to 12% might be flash. There's different values within that. That's the good thing about having the profile, is if I then go on to shutter, click on the little thing at the top, it shows you from 0 to 100% what each individual gradual section is on there. So if I then click one, say that's a bit of strobe, turn the dimmer up. So then that's basically a pulse strobe, so it pulses and then it stops, pulses and stops. So that's then a value between 0 and 100%, and you can see on that screen where I've clicked it, it then has a value up to about 60% or something like that. So that's how that works, basically different things. So things that are not linear have different sections. You can program that in that scan library as well. So you put in pan and tilt there, and you can put in here different sections from 0 to 100%. Lets you recognise it in software. Yeah, that's basically that. Any questions?
Yeah,
anyone want to have a play?
If you're using more than one light
yeah,
that are identical, they go on the same channel?
They can do. So if
you want to follow each other?
Yeah, so if you just want them to follow each other, you put them on the same address, they will do exactly the same thing. And also if you're doing two moving lights and you want them to mirror each other, they won't mirror each other. The values it's sending from the desk will do that. You can on the light then pan and tilt and it will automatically change that there. That's the easiest with DJing, that's the easiest way to do it, is just put them on the same channel sometimes, because then you haven't got to go, with this software it can be a little bit fiddly. So if you go through and change that value there, you do then have to go to your next moving head and do exactly the same values, so that's where it gets a little bit long with that. That's when you get up to bigger desks like this, you can just select lights by just putting like light 1 through light 4.
Yeah, my controllers can
they call that syntax is what that is, so it lets you type in.
I've got 12 buttons, one for each light.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, you can do that. Yeah. Any other questions? Anyone want to have
the same process if you slave?
So slaving isn't to do with DMX.
That's what I'm saying, from one, when you set one up.
Yeah, so that question when I was working here, I always got questions that if you put the first light in your chain on DMX address 1 and then you put the rest in slave, that won't work.
Oh, right.
So slaving is a function within the lights itself, not actually a DMX control.
Right.
It can mess things up because...
I'm 100% sure.
Yeah, because slaving uses DMX cable,
yeah.
so it joins them together. But say you had the first light on DMX and then the next light on a slave, it's then sending a slave signal back to the first light, which then messes up the DMX. That's why sometimes they flash randomly. So you need to make sure in your whole chain you've got them all in DMX mode, and if you want them to slave, just put them all on the same address. As long as they're the same light, that'll work fine.
Oh right,
so basically the difference
so basically they've got to have leads from the box.
Yeah, so I didn't explain that. So with DMX, you come out of your controller, you then go into your first light, out of that into the next light, it's that daisy chain. You then don't loop back to your original controller. As problems we've had before with doing that, it's just one sort of daisy chain.
Terminator plug in there.
Terminator plugs, in my opinion, are a bit of a myth. You don't need them. It basically puts a resistor at the end. So if you're using a massive long chain of DMX, then yes, it loops the signal back and resists the signal, so it boosts the signal basically. Wireless dongles. So what do you mean with a controller?
My controller's got used Wi-Fi.
Yeah, so that again uses some uses DMX, but it's
I mean, it's got DMX wired output as well, but
yeah.
But
wireless the wireless ones that they brought out, they're to work with each other. So that like Apple make things to only work with Apple's stuff. So that's when things are confusing.
Good old fashioned Chinese.
I use wireless dongles. Yeah, exactly. I use wireless dongles.
Oh, I have no idea.
You just basically go from the USB into your first piece of kit.
Oh, okay, so
it's powered as well, but all your other ones are rechargeable.
So it's just sending the DMX signal. Yeah, that's the same thing. Yeah.
It's basically just moving the cable.
Yeah, because ADJ brought out a range of controllers that have the Wi-Fi.
Wi-Fi, they call it.
Yeah. That's the system that is itself. You couldn't then add something that wasn't Wi-Fi. So
yeah, my one is basically the ADJ one directly from the vanilla mate.
Yeah, it's just sending a wireless signal.
I'll just going to interrupt because pizzas have arrived and we want them hot. Guys, girls, give us a nice round of applause for Chris.